breaking news that's coming in at the moment. Joe Biden has clearly written out a long statement, and he says, my fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation today. America is the strongest economy in the world. We have made historic investments in building our nation. We must remind ourselves that we are the United States of America. This is with regards to a big statement coming in from Joe Biden, who's now said that he is withdrawing from the U.S. presidential race. This is exactly what Donald Trump has been speaking about over the past few days, and there were speculations that from within his party, Joe Biden was being asked to step down, given his health was not doing well. A brief statement has been given out by Joe Biden, who very clearly now says that he's done everything that he could over the past 3.5 years, and also speaks to the fellow Americans. He says, I know I could not have done anything that I have done over the past years without you, the American people. Together we have overcome once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We've protected and preserved our democracy, and we have made sure that we have strengthened our allies with everyone around the world. He also goes on to say it has been his greatest honor in life to serve as the President of the United States of America. And he also says that he really wanted to seek a re-election. He believes that it is in the best interest of his party and the countrymen for him to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling his duties as the President for the remainder of his term. He's also said he'll be speaking with the nation later this week in more details about his decision. So at the moment, the one person about whom Donald Trump had been speaking about over the past few days, especially after the assassination bid, Donald Trump was asking Joe Biden to step down, and now we are seeing that this statement, Joe Biden very clearly saying that he's not. These are big news coming in now. We are seeing Joe Biden. He's written out a small statement, and in the small statement speaks about what the country has done over the past many years, and also speaks about the fact he really wanted to seek re-election, but at the moment he says he believes this is the best interest of the party and its people. My colleague Gaurav Sawant is now joining me on the story. Gaurav, this is big news coming in with regards to the United States of America. We had seen how it was Donald Trump on one side, especially after the assassination bid, very clearly asking Joe Biden to step down. And on the other side, we were also seeing that it was Barack Obama who also was hinting towards the fact that Joe Biden must step down.
And right now, the Democrats, it's a tough situation for them, because who will their presidential candidate be? They have very little time, one, to decide on the name, and two, push forward the campaign with elections scheduled in November. So very little time. There was intense pressure on Joe Biden to step down, not just after the first debate, where his performance was subpar, but beyond that, after presidential candidate Donald Trump was shot at, the way he rose, punched his fist in the air, said fight. He was seen as someone who was absolutely there despite being in the line of fire, despite being shot at. He had his wits around. And Joe Biden, who looked completely nonplussed, even in a presidential debate, he would forget names, lose direction, which side he wanted to go. So the pressure was mounting. And after the Republican National Convention at Milwaukee in Wisconsin, the manner in which the Republicans were able to galvanize behind Donald Trump. So the Democrats were under intense pressure. And finally, you mentioned about Barack Obama, you mentioned about several other leaders who were putting pressure on Joe Biden to step aside. Finally, under intense pressure, he's agreed that he will step down. He will step aside. But the big question remains: who would he be replaced by? Will it be Kamala Harris, or there are about 7 to 8 other names that are doing the rounds? It remains to be seen who will finally be selected at the Democratic National Convention. That's in about a month from now.
The very important question that you are asking is the same question that now, after the statement, a lot of people around the globe will be asking the same question. And Gaurav, it also seems like at the moment we did see that iconic picture of Donald Trump, the fist up in the air. Do you also believe in some ways that, no matter who comes in front of Donald Trump, it seems like this is an election which is going the Donald Trump way?
Well, you're absolutely right. The several names that are doing rounds. The front runner, of course, the vice president currently. Will it be Kamala Harris? Because, Kamala Harris is seen as someone who's known as his vice president. But would he have endorsed her to be his running mate again next time? That was the big question. Then the name of the California governor, Gavin Newsom, his name has been doing the rounds. Many argued that he'd already been doing a shadow campaign, so the California governor is seen as a possible choice. The Illinois governor, J.V. Pritzker, he's been seen as one of the choices, and then there are a long list of governors, whether it's from Colorado or Pennsylvania, or an outlier. Could it be Senator Bernie Sanders, who's always been seen as always the best man but never the groom, or could it even be Michelle Obama? So there are so many names right now that are doing the rounds, and it's all in the realm of speculation. It remains to be seen who can galvanize the Democrat camp, Democrats camp, and then take on Donald Trump, who seems to be on a roll right now, Aishwarya.
Gaurav, please stay on with me. Geeta Mohan, our foreign affairs editor, joining us on the broadcast now. Geeta, take it away.
Well, this is the biggest news that is coming in. We were discussing this over the week, whether if President Biden is going to withdraw from the presidential race or not. We were given to understand that there is a lot of pressure that's mounting on President Biden. And should he have done it on the 19th of August, which is where the Democratic National Convention is going to be held, it would be very, very late. Although it already is quite late for many in the Democratic circles who have been saying that this should have been done long before. And now, with all the gaffes that we've seen, with all the mistakes, the fact that there have been questions. Imagine a presidential election in the United States of America where all the focus has been on whether if the president of the United States of America is mentally capable of running the government and running a presidential race for the next and becoming president for the next 4 years. That's the debate. That's the questions. Those are the questions that we've been asking through many weeks now, and it was time. We've seen billionaires and tech billionaires such as Elon Musk taking the lead on this one, completely endorsing Republican candidate Donald Trump and questioning the capability of the Democratic candidate, so to say, and the president of America, President Biden, on whether if he can really drive America in the way and the manner in which they want him to. So a lot of questions were being asked by these billionaires. There were a lot of questions that were being asked in various circles. News of about 35 Democrats who'd actually written to President Biden asking him to withdraw. So there was immense pressure. There were also reports that he was in talks, and there were conversations internally with close circle of friends, is also family, on what the president should be doing. The last straw, it seems like, was him having tested positive for COVID-19. And then we saw Kamala Harris, the vice president, coming on and taking the campaign forward with the election rallies that she was holding in places and in cities where President Biden was scheduled to go and rally. And it is a very, very significant news that has come finally. Gaurav Sawant, our managing editor with India Today, continues to be with us. Gaurav, this is significant. We've seen a lot of conversation through the weeks. We ourselves had been discussing it, and in many ways had said that in all probability our weekend is going to be, although it's almost over, but for us there was an assumption that we would have our weekend completely ruined with Joe Biden announcing it early on Sunday, but it did not happen early on Sunday in India. It certainly happened early on Sunday in the United States of America. So Biden, sticking to what the rumor mills were saying, of his news of withdrawal on Sunday, and that really has come through.
So, Geeta, finally Joe Biden read the writing on the wall. He resisted it till the very end. He was hoping that he would be able to, drag himself through all along. But clearly that wasn't to happen, and especially after that assassination attempt on Donald Trump and the manner in which Donald Trump was able to respond in the line of fire. So, the contrast couldn't have been more stark. Here was Joe Biden at the presidential debate losing his chain of thought. He was seen as someone who was incoherent. In various speeches, he would lose his chain of thought. Even in that NATO address, you'd recall how he ended up calling the Ukrainian president President Putin, and all of that. And then there were a series of these mistakes, if I may. And Americans, even though they wanted to be very proper and not be seen as ageist, they did realize that would Joe Biden be the man? So even within the Democrats, a very large number of people who had initially backed him started saying that this is time for change. Whether it was the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer or even Nancy Pelosi or Barack Obama.
There were so many names. Gaurav, can I just interrupt you there for a bit, because now we have another big news coming in from a tweet that Joe Biden has put, and it is absolutely clear with this tweet that Joe Biden over here is endorsing Kamala Harris. It is a big news that's coming in at this hour. We're looking at Joe Biden now endorsing Kamala Harris, saying that the best decision that he'd made was picking Kamala Harris as his vice presidential candidate, and now he is going ahead and nominating her. Let me just read out the tweet for you. My fellow Democrats have decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this. President Biden, that's news just coming in, Gaurav, has endorsed Kamala Harris. The big question now within the Democratic circle, we know a lot of Democratic members are not in favor of Kamala Harris being the nominee. What does this mean? Does this mean that they'll end up having a closed convention or just go ahead with Kamala Harris on August 19th? Or are they going to open it up for others?
That's extremely interesting, because still a couple of days back, many were arguing that would she be his vice presidential nominee even for the second term, even for the second tenure. And the fact that he's endorsed Kamala Harris is huge, because even in the Democrats camp, now there were several names, that were doing the rounds. You had names of the California governor, the Illinois governor, the Michigan governor, Colorado governor, that were doing the round, including Pennsylvania. And of course, as many argue, could it be Senator Bernie Sanders, or as an outlier, could it even be Michelle Obama, or is it too late for her to throw in her hat in the ring? So he's endorsed Kamala Harris. Joe Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris. Now remains to be seen at the Democrats convention whether she gets support of everyone, or will she have to fight it out? What's her strategy for it? Very, very interesting times in the United States of America, and especially for the Democrats, because the Republicans have their house in order, they have the funds, their system is rolling. The Democrats, of course, several hiccups in their election campaign right now.
Well, okay. We also have Sushant Sareen joining us on this big breaking news. Sushant, this is the big news that we are seeing with President Biden withdrawing, and also in the same breath endorsing Kamala Harris. It cannot get more interesting than this on a Sunday evening, late evening, so to say.
Whether it's interesting or not, I think it was quite expected. There was a lot of speculation whether, during the weekend, he will announce that he's withdrawing. And it was more or less understood that, they would be, or at least he would be endorsing Kamala Harris. And now, whether the Democratic Party is ready to go with her as the nominee, or there is going to be some kind of a challenge, I'm not aware of that. But look, here is the thing. If you are one of a prospective presidential candidate, would you want to jump into an election at this stage, or just become a kind of a fall guy? Maybe I'm being a little nasty on this, but if you are one of those, you're a governor somewhere, or you're a rising star of the Democratic Party, you would want to bide your time for another 4 years before you put in your hat in the ring, and not get into an election at this stage, this late stage, and then hope to win it. So I would imagine that in the natural course of things, it makes sense for them to go with Kamala Harris. If she wins, great. If she doesn't, then there's somebody waiting in the wings to step in. So I would imagine that's the way things are likely to move. But it seems like a bit of an uphill battle for the Democrats at this stage. But it was very clear that I don't think Joe Biden was in any position to either campaign or, if he had won, to stay in the presidency for another 4 years. I think his mental and physical faculties were severely impaired. And clearly, you could not expect that the most powerful country in the world is being led by somebody like him, who's not entirely in control of all his faculties. At least that's the impression, which was going around after the first debate, and then subsequent footages that were coming out of how he was interacting with people on the public stage. So yes, there were moments of lucidity. There were moments when he was all there, and then suddenly, you would see that he's just not there. So I think this is a wise decision for him to step aside, and now one will have to wait and see how the election proceeds from here, or the campaign proceeds from here.
What was a clincher over here, and a real deciding factor, Sushant? The fact that polls were dropping, the fact that there was increasing voices within the Democrats who wanted him out or wanted him to withdraw, the fact that funders were withdrawing, that he was not making the 50 million mark by the end of July, which is what was the target, and then falling ill with COVID-19. Is it a mix of all of them, or was the fact that funding was not coming through the major factor over here?
No, I think each of these issues was important. I think basically the confidence was shaken in the fact that will he be able to swing this election in favor of the Democrats? Will the public actually vote for somebody like him? Given the kind of questions that were raised about his health and his age. And I think everything else, after that, it was a bit of a domino. A lot of the donors kind of became skittish. People within the party started questioning whether he should be the candidate or not, whether he should step aside. COVID probably was the last straw that, although frankly, COVID is a pretty benign thing these days, but maybe that was just the last straw and kind of convinced him that, look, you're very vulnerable to all kinds of sickness. So, it's best that you've reached the top of the political ladder, and it's better to step aside rather than, be pushed aside. So I would imagine it was a combination of factors rather than any one single thing, that just because the money was not coming in, that is why, he was forced to step aside. I think he lost support within the party. People thought that this is not a winning candidate. They probably could not win, did not even have a chance of winning an election if he was the guy who was going to be on the Democratic ticket.
Right. Sushant Sareen, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today. We also have with us right now Rohit Sharma, who joins us from Washington, D.C., journalist from D.C. Rohit, what a Sunday to have. Joe Biden has withdrawn, and he has also nominated Kamala Harris. Is that what was expected? Because we did expect Joe Biden at some point in time to take that decision on whether he's going to stay on or withdraw. It could not have been kept on hold till the 19th of August for the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we've seen everything the past 3.5 weeks, right? I mean, we saw that debate performance. We saw what's unfolded after that. We've seen an assassination attempt on former President Trump. We've seen Joe Biden, getting COVID. I mean, it's been crazy. But I mean, long story short, I think, Geeta, the bottom line was, Joe Biden needed some polling to get convinced that he would not be able to beat Donald Trump. And that's exactly what has happened. There have been data that's been presented to Joe Biden. His family needed to look at that data. I mean, he was pretty strong when he said, only God Almighty can convince him to drop out. But then I think a practical decision had to be taken. And the decision was that the Democrats are not polling well anywhere in the country. I mean, you look at the swing states, Trump is ahead by 5.6 points. I mean, some of these states, Joe Biden only won by 2 or 3 points. So I think, they had to sit down, his family, they had to talk to the president. I know for a fact that Joe Biden did not want this decision to be made. But I mean, it's all happening because of DNC is only 3.5 weeks away, and they wanted to unite behind a candidate. And that candidate, as we all know, will be Kamala Harris for obvious reasons. But I mean, it's just unbelievable that, what's transpired in the last 3 weeks. If somebody had asked, if Joe Biden was going to step aside, I would have said never. But what we have seen, especially after Trump's assassination attempt, the kind of sympathy wave he's gotten over the last week, the polling bump that he's gotten after RNC, I think it was going to happen. A lot of people were saying it was going to happen this weekend. And I mean, it did not come to many as a surprise. But then again, people in his orbit were very, very strong, and they did not want him to drop out.
Well, that's the big news that's coming in. Rohit Sharma, stay on with us. We'll keep coming back to you because this is the big story we'll be tracking here on India Today. President Biden has withdrawn from the 2024 presidential race, but he has also endorsed Kamala Harris as the nominee for the Democratic Party. We'll have to wait and see how the party decides on this front. Slipping into a short break, all the news and updates and developments on this front continue on the other side. Stay tuned.
You are watching India Today. Watching India Today.
Moving now to the state of West Bengal, where Mamata Banerjee was raining fire at the TMC's mega Shahid Divas rally. In a major show of strength, NDA allies Mamata Banerjee and Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav shared the stage in West Bengal. During TMC's mega rally, West Bengal Chief Minister slammed the Congress Party and the Bharatiya Janata Party, and Akhilesh Yadav was by her side. Mamata Banerjee said she fought against the BJP and the Congress in the state of West Bengal and she won. Attacking the BJP, Mamata Banerjee said the party has been shamelessly using central agencies in order to win the Lok Sabha elections. Mamata Banerjee further accused BJP of buying political parties and promised to fight against the Saffron clan till her last breath. Calling TMC Supremo a very big leader, Akhilesh Yadav backed Mamata Banerjee and promised to support the Trinamool Congress till the very end.
बंगाल का शब्द मैं चाहती हूँ हिंदुस्तान का रिलेशन अच्छा हो। अरे शुरुआत हुआ आपका लिए, आपने आके हम लोग को हम आपको शुक्रिया अदा करती हूँ। हम आपको पार्टी को, समाजवादी पार्टी को पहले अभिनंदन करने चाहूंगी कि यूपी में जो खेल आपने दिखाया, अभी तो बीजेपी को रिजाइन करना चाहिए था, लेकिन उसको शर्म कम होता है। आपको थोड़ा से दिन इंतजार करने पड़ेगा, लेकिन आपका साथ मैं सहमत हूं कि दिल्ली में जो गवर्नमेंट एजेंसी लगा के, इलेक्शन कमीशन को लगा के, डरा के जो गवर्नमेंट ले आया, वो स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट नहीं है। कोई भी दिन हो जा सकता है, जैसे कभी धूप आता है, बारिश होता है, उसका बाद ऐसे बहुत दिन हो गया। इनफ इज इनफ।
मैं सबसे पहले